That was a major landslide victory for Trump in Iowa, and Biden looks very worried. Buckle up, guys, because tonight we're going to be deep diving into the 2024 election landscape, starting with a stunning development from the snowy plains of Iowa. Former President Donald Trump secured a major victory in the state's caucus, sparking a wave of analysis and speculation. But how does this historical comeback actually compare to other one-term presidents? Is this a defining moment for the Republican Party, or maybe just kind of a single data point on a complex race? Global business leaders at the World Economic Forum are also buzzing about the implications of this win. So we're going to be hearing from the CEOs like JP Morgan Chase's Jamie Dimon, Blackstone's Stefan Schwarzman, and OpenAI's Sam Altman on their diverse perspectives and what it means for the economic landscape in a potential Trump presidency. But let's not forget about the other side of the aisle. For the last part, we're going to be looking into how President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are each offering a stark glimpse at the political liabilities that have many Americans wishing that they had other options in 2024. But really, it's all about the truth here. So let's make sure you guys are comfy because this is a video you do not want to miss. Now, before we even get into this, I just want to thank you guys for always taking a second and dropping a huge like for the video. I really appreciate that. Also, thank you so much for always sharing these videos. By sharing these videos, it is a tremendous help for the channel. So thank you guys so much for liking and sharing these videos. Former President Donald Trump was certainly happy when he won in the Iowa caucuses. Some called it one of the most astonishing comebacks in American political history. A lot of analysts can't get enough of it. Check this out.
Yeah, it shows how confident he feels coming off of this win. I mean, I haven't heard Donald Trump give a speech like that probably in 8 years, and I've been to a lot of Donald Trump speeches. I mean, he hasn't called Ron DeSantis Ron since Ron DeSantis entered the presidential race. He has only called him by nicknames and called him disloyal. And to see him give that speech, I think, speaks to how he feels after this victory tonight. But I also think this is a speech that he's giving after he has not had any wins in several years. I mean, he lost the 2020 election. He's facing 91 criminal counts. He's going to be in a New York courtroom tomorrow for a trial where a jury will determine how much he owes the columnist E. Jean Carroll for defaming her, something that they've already decided. They're not deciding that, they're deciding how much he owes her. And I think that is what is fueling that attitude that you saw there, where he was speaking graciously of his opponents, clearly calling on them to drop out of the race and talking about this notion of uniting the country, which struck me given obviously how polarized the country is at this moment, and this idea of uniting liberals and conservatives in that speech.
Now, I know my friends from California are all for Trump in 2024. Some of them never voted in their life until 2020 when they voted for Trump, and they're planning to vote for him again in 2024. I know that this is shocking to say for some people coming out of California, but it's true. They say that Trump represents a strong government for them. But what about you guys? Now, whichever side of the Trump debate you're on, there's no arguing that the landslide victory for the former president was a stunning show of strength after leaving Washington in disgrace. Historically, one-term presidents rarely launch successful comebacks, let alone achieve landslide victories that solidify their party dominance. In 2016, Trump reshaped the Republican Party with his populist, nationalist, nihilistic platform. His recent Iowa win, securing a record-breaking 50% of the vote and potentially paving the way for a third consecutive nomination, suggests that 8 years after Trump's outsider victory, the current GOP remains firmly under his influence. He won despite 91 criminal charges and other legal entanglements that threaten his freedom and his fortune. According to him, the big night is going to be in November when they take our country back. As Republican strategists put it, the Republican Party wants to give Donald Trump one more shot to prove them all wrong, that everything was a witch hunt, that the election was rigged. It's obvious they want one more shot at it. It's showing up in national polling, and we're seeing it at the caucus sites. While Iowa is just the first step in a lengthy nomination process, and the caucus turnout actually just represents a small part of the state's population, Donald Trump's strong showing among rural voters reflects his broader support base outside of urban areas. Polls suggest his victory here could be replicated in other Republican strongholds nationwide. And so this win also intensifies the intersection of the 2024 election with Trump's ongoing legal challenges. His solidifying position as a GOP frontrunner raises the possibility of the party nominating someone facing criminal charges, an unprecedented scenario depending on the outcome of the upcoming trials. Now, Donald Trump's victory in the Iowa caucuses has generated significant discussion about the potential path of the White House. While the nominating process is lengthy and complex, his strong performance highlights the challenges his opponents face in securing the Republican nomination. Recent polls suggest Trump remains competitive in key swing states, meaning this is probably going to be a close election regardless of the eventual nominee. Now, it may concern Democrats that while Trump hasn't toned down the unhinged wildness of his public appearances, his victory in Iowa was the first validation of a far more professional political operation than he deployed in either the 2016 or 2020 elections. But it's important to note that Trump's performance in specific regions may not directly translate to national outcomes. The Biden campaign argues that a big victory for Trump in Iowa would begin to awaken Americans who rejected him in 2020 of the real danger that he could recapture the White House. Trump's triumph will also reverberate around the world and force U.S. allies to confront the possibility that the most antagonistic president in modern history, who cozied up with dictators and spurned Americans' traditional friends in democratic nations, could soon be back. European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde sounded the alarm on France 2 television last week. So according to her, if we are to draw lessons from history, as in the way he managed the 4 years of his mandate, it is clearly a threat. A return to office for Trump could represent an existential danger to NATO, which helped keep peace in Europe through the Cold War and into the 21st century. Trump's victory will also give Russian President Vladimir Putin another reason to prolong the bloody war in the Ukraine. Trump said he would get Putin in a room with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, which some worry would just end on terms unfavorable for the Ukrainians. For many Americans, Trump will boldly go where no man has gone before. The 2024 election is definitely shaping up to be the election of the century. So if you're interested in staying ahead of the curve, definitely hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll be providing you guys with regular updates, analysis, and diverse perspectives throughout the campaign. So I'll be making sure that you guys don't miss anything. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap that notification bell. Totally appreciate it. Now, for President Biden, Trump's GOP primary win in Iowa meant nothing. Biden says that Trump can think any way he wants. Let him make that judgment. But you can definitely tell how affected he and his campaign really is. Biden was also asked by reporters about declining Arab and Muslim support for him. Mounting pressure has been building on the White House, with Democrats, progressives, and Arab and Muslim Americans urging a call for a ceasefire in Gaza. But President Biden is still maintaining his support for Israel since the October attacks, even though cracks have started to appear in the U.S.-Israel relationship. Publicly, U.S. officials are increasingly voicing concerns about the impact on civilians and have called for Israel to refine its approach in Gaza, focusing on Hamas while minimizing civilian casualties. Plus, there are calls to hold MSM accountable for their misrepresentation of Trump, of the Israel-Hamas war, and even the Russian-Ukrainian war. People are saying that the BS must stop. That's a big part of why we built this channel in the first place, right? To really get the truth out there. Truth exposed, as we say here in our YouTube community, right guys? Even global business leaders attending the World Economic Forum event in Davos, they could not stop talking about Trump and his potential return to the White House after his resounding Iowa caucus victory. Now, one interesting theme that came out of this discussion, during the World Economic Forum summit, a recurring theme emerged in the private conversations of business executives. U.S. industry leaders overwhelmingly seem nonplussed with a second Trump term, while foreign chief executives are terrified, particularly of restrictions on immigration and potential global conflicts. Some of them even agreed to give what they've been talking about under the condition of anonymity. So according to this one prominent U.S. business executive, he's not sure Europeans understand how weak executive orders are. We have a justice system. Congress will probably be divided. It's right to be cautious, but it won't be the end of the world. Another U.S. bank CEO privately expressed annoyance with media exaggeration of the threat of a Trump presidency, stressing that he's all bark and no bite. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon said Trump was kind of right about NATO. He was kind of right about immigration. He grew the economy quite well. Trade, tax reform worked. He was right about some of China. Dimon didn't like how Trump said things about Mexico, but he wasn't wrong about some of these critical issues. And that's why they're voting for him. Blackstone CEO Stephen Schwarzman expressed another common theme among executives, that both Trump and Biden are flawed choices. He said that there are very high negative negatives for both candidates. Tech leaders also gave their own comments about a Trump victory in 2024. For Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff, depending upon who's in the office creates a whole stir with a different part of the employee base. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman agreed that elections are huge deals, but he also believes that America is going to be fine no matter what happens with this election. NASDAQ CEO Adina Friedman said it's simply too early to focus on what Trump may or may not mean for the country this time around. For him, they need to see how the primaries shake out first. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump present contrasting views of the political landscape, and that leaves many Americans longing for alternative options in 2024. At 81 years old, Biden is facing a lot of scrutiny over his age and cognitive abilities. Basically, there's a whole lot of doubts among voters about his capacity for a second full term. Meanwhile, Trump's recent displays of extremism raise concerns about his suitability for the Oval Office. So really, a lot of people aren't that enthusiastic about their choices for 2024. Biden would be one of the more conventional choices because Trump is promising one of the most tumultuous second terms in U.S. history. Despite this, Trump remains competitive in polls, suggesting a real chance of victory. But this is definitely going to be totally different from their matchup in 2020. The sitting president is 4 years older, and age questions are even more acute. And Trump is even more radical and unchained than when he left the office. As the prospect of a Biden versus Trump rematch looms, it's clear that both candidates have evolved since 2020, with age and extremism adding new dimensions to the political landscape. Well, as you can see, in Trump, voters can pick an ex-president facing 91 criminal charges who have been found liable for fraud, sexual battery, and defamation in court. Trump, 77 years old, tried to stay in power after losing re-election in 2020. Recently, Trump sided with Russian President Vladimir Putin over NATO allies and mocked the military service of GOP rival Nikki Haley's husband. He's also facing a set of court deadlines and hearings that will renew the focus of his seemingly endless threats to the rule of law. In Biden, voters must decide whether to re-elect the oldest president ever at 81 years old, who's angrily trying to fight accusations about his declining memory. But Biden is visibly aging while mixing up the names of foreign leaders, and polls show overwhelming skepticism about the public about his re-election plans. The key question voters will face is not whether Biden is fit to serve as commander-in-chief now, but rather, will he still be by the end of the second term when he'll be 86 years old? Now, what about you guys? If elections were right now, who would you pick between the two, Biden or Trump? Sound off in the comments down below, and let's always remember to keep it civil, all right? More on the next videos, guys. I'll see you there.